So, having crossed the 100 plus hour threshold in Monster Hunter Wilds recently, I think I have enough experience to talk about Mizutsune being announced as a title update monster prior to the game's release. I could have talked about it at the first announcement, yes, but things happened with a certain video, and the shorts I was making for a huge batch of monsters, including Mizu, were put onto the back burner. More importantly though, I wanted to give the game a bit of hang time before I talked about it, because the first title update monster sets a precedent going forward. It establishes and modifies what the current flow in endgame is, as well as where things can go from here on out. Past title updates have generally been fine in terms of the monsters being chosen. I recall that there weren't many people upset at Deviljho being announced for Worlds, or Regine for Iceborne. Rise was a bit peculiar, sure, but that's for development reasons among COVID. Mizutsune marks the first big shakeup in the title update structure, as it is the only monster to be added into the game post-launch that is not Elder level. And for those not in the know, and to establish some things going forward, Elder level is the term Monster Hunter fans use to refer to monsters that are extremely close to Elder Dragons in terms of power or environmental influence, yet aren't Elders themselves. Think the Invader Trio, or a Cantor and Eucanlos as an example of what an Elder level is like. Every title update monster so far has been Elder level in many ways, whether as an invader, variant, rare species, crossover monster, endgame mode, or just straight up Elder Dragon. Which is why Mizutsune is such a shocker, as it fills none of those categories and yet is being made as title update content. With that in mind, I've seen many people assert that Mizutsune shouldn't even be title update content, that it just doesn't have the same pedigree or threat level that something like Deviljho has, and couldn't possibly challenge our endgame builds in any way or form. Or that Mizutsune as a title update monster is lazy, and shows the game was rushed for profits or whatever. This should have been in the base game, more monsters should have been around, you know, yada yada yada, that kind of shit. Which is funny to think about, because weren't there quite a few people wanting a smaller roster? Much less a roster if not as many Elder Dragons after the massive bloat of the 5th gen? Something that I covered quite extensively, by the way, in a past video, and you should check that out, you know? Wink wink, nudge nudge. But yeah, it's just really odd. So many people wanted the roster size to calm down, or knew that it was the start of a new generation, which can be pretty light in terms of monster roster, yet are complaining when a new game does exactly that. And we want to talk about small monster rosters? Try had fucking 18. 18! 3 of which were returning, and 3 more being online event-exclusive quests that you didn't always have access to. Wilds has 29. I love Try, don't get me wrong, but damn man, it's quite eye-opening to think about. It feels like some people have grown some kind of obligation for monsters to be around in the games, or that the next game should have every monster from before plus more. Which just isn't realistic. Because Monster Hunter ain't like Pokemon where there's an obligation to bring back every single creature in each game. The franchise instead acts much more like Digimon, having a constantly rotating roster to ensure that things remain fresh, and also so as to not burden the employees' workload, which is already quite massive with Wilds overhauling a lot of the gameplay and system mechanics that had stayed generally untouched up till this point. The only mainstays throughout are Rathalos and Rathian, and they are essentially the Pikachu of the franchise. Even Diablos, who had been pretty consistent across the franchise, missed out on a new game release for the first time in over 7 years with Wilds. And he has missed other game titles in the past before, like Base 4. Same goes with other monsters like Chameleos missing Base 4, World, and Iceborne, despite Kushala and Teostra being present. I can understand if you think that Mizutsune is a wasted slot compared to what monsters could have been there, but it feels wrong to me to say that there is an obligation for Mizu to appear in every game, or at least the base of one. Same as how there is no set standard on what defines title update eligibility. Sure, the past few games have had the pattern of Elder level monsters in various forms, but there is no outright rule by the devs stating what passes for a title update. Not to mention, once you go Elder level with the title updates, there's kind of the assumption that the pattern will continue. It's the nature of video game updates in general. You can't intentionally just make an update that lowers the difficulty or standard set by the previous one. It would feel really weird to go back down to Apex tier monsters after so many updates of Elder level content. And when you keep going and going with higher difficulty updates, you run into the issue of power creep, which is especially prevalent in the world of long-lasting MMOs. By contrast, starting out with Apex tier monsters like Mizu could provide a more stable launching pad for future content. You can afford to hang it around the current standards set by Apexes in this game, allowing access to a wider variety of monsters around that tier, rather than the usual selection of Elder level or Elder Dragons that we've already run through, before giving us the next major escalation. This is alongside working in whatever fixes, new event quests, and content in the game like the new hub we might be getting. The focus on Apex tier monsters also works better with the main focus of a game, the environments and weather. Now, that isn't to say that Elder level monsters can't work in environments this heavily intricate or have dynamic interactions. Of course they can, and it would be really cool to see. But Elder level monsters, especially Elder Dragons, have their unique quirks in the lore, like causing most other monsters to flee, or often having special, isolated arenas dedicated to find them. Even the quote-unquote arena of this game has a weather forecast with monsters coming in. So getting in these types of monsters would take a bit more work. By contrast, Apex tier monsters don't have as many restrictions, and the process of making them fit in could be overall much smoother, both in a game sense and world sense. Something that was outright confirmed by Yuya Tokita, who said in an interview that Elder Dragons were not essential for the themes the game was going for, hence their exclusion from the roster. Circling back to the difficulty complaints though, and not gonna lie, I'm really unsure how to talk about it considering how rampant and volatile it is in the context of Wilds. Plus, honestly, I'm kind of tired of a constant cycle we go through with every new game release. I guarantee you that the moment a really difficult monster comes out, people are gonna go right to the other side of the pendulum and say that now things are too hard. Difficulty is subjective for everyone. I've seen people take as long as 18 minutes on things like Nursilla or New Udra, and at the end of the day, it doesn't affect my overall enjoyment of the game. But for the people who are really serious and engaged in the game's difficulty, I'm not sure. Maybe Mizutsune could increase it, maybe not. Gormagala and Rathlos did get major renovations in Wilds that overall made them harder, especially with Gormagala in the tempered state. So it's a possibility that Mizutsune could get a pretty impressive facelift. Plus, there is also the strength rating on monsters on the field. So given how 5 strength monsters are right now, that could also potentially make Mizutsune more challenging. That said, I don't think the complaint of Tempered Arkfeld being the only 8-star level monster is gonna be fixed by Mizutsune. So maybe in terms of this issue, an Elder level threat or even an Elder Dragon would be better? I don't know, unless Capcom pulls out the surprise steel chair and elevates Tempered Mizutsune to 8 stars because of individuals being stronger here in the Forbidden Lands or whatever they come up with. I'm just spitballing here. I don't know, could always be a possibility. Ultimately, the difficulty and state of this game is going to depend a lot on what else is packed within this update. Because even though I am fine with Mizutsune, I do not see it as just being Mizu. I am totally imagining in my head that this is going to be a Sunbreak title update situation where multiple monsters are introduced within a single update. Something that has basically been outright confirmed by tweets from the official Monster Hunter account, alongside a new level of difficulty above Tempered. Is it a buff to Frenzy? Perhaps it is Arc Tempered? Or maybe they add an Apex, in which case, please do it right this time without the stupid white stones. But yeah, to wrap up the discussion here on Mizutsune, I personally don't mind the inclusion of Mizu as the first title update monster. It's a bold new direction for title updates compared to the past, and Mizu may have already gotten a lot of shine, but I still do like the monster quite a bit, and think that with the systems at play, things could potentially be looking good. Like all of 5th gen, the scope of the game is going to have to depend a lot on that post-launch impact. So unfortunately, we're just going to have to see in a month or two how Title Update 1 will change anything in the endgame, much less how Wilds will look at the end of its life. And in terms of the allegations that this game was rushed to add a bit more to Capcom's earnings, and that Mizu should have or was meant for the base game, I'm gonna hold off on believing any of that. I don't think it does the game any good to immediately draw conclusions when we don't know anything about the internal reasons for the release date, or any development troubles they may have had. Basically, I'm looking forward to Mizutsune and whatever else they do. And should that all be great to play through, then hell yeah, I'd say. With all that said, this is where I'm gonna end the video. Like I said recently, I've been trying to include a bit more of my own personal experiences or opinions into videos like these, and I do hope it was, at the very least, enjoyable. You are more than welcome to share your opinions down in the comment section below on Mizutsune being the first title update monster, whether that be in agreement or disagreement. At the end of the day though, please remember to be civil. Besides just commenting, you can also like, share the video around, or even subscribe to further support the channel and the content I make here. Plus, I have an official Bluesky, as well as Discord server down in the description below, so if you want to stay up to date on content or chill with other people, feel free to come on down. Anyways, I have been the Monarch of Dragons, and I hope you all have a fantastic day/night wherever you live. Peace, and Kulus Vault.